ever get that feeling,
Yeah.
Like that one, when you just sort of assume everything's cool, especially in a place where everyone knows everyone else.
Right, like a small town or
Yeah, exactly. Like a small school district. It's easy to think, hey, we're all in this together, especially when it comes to our kids and their education. But
and especially when it comes to how, our hard-earned tax dollars are being spent.
exactly. But as we're about to uncover in this deep dive into Hyder Elementary School District, that's not always the reality.
It's really easy for that whole we're all looking out for each other thing to kind of mask what's really going on.
Which is why we're digging into this report from the Arizona Auditor General.
Right, and just so everyone knows, their job is to make sure public funds are being used properly.
And it sounds like, in this case, something triggered a much deeper look into Hyder Elementary than usual.
Oh yeah, this wasn't just a routine checkup.
Okay, so the report really centers around this woman, Nubia Gonzalez, who is the superintendent's secretary. Is there more to this than meets the eye?
Oh, there's always more to the story. It's easy to think secretary, okay, whatever, but it's a position of trust, right? They often have access to sensitive information, financial processes.
Right, they're the gatekeeper in a way.
Exactly. And in this situation, Ms. Gonzalez is actually facing some pretty serious allegations. We're talking theft, misuse of public monies.
Misuse like how?
Well, and I mean, this is where it gets wild. They're even saying forgery.
Forgery. Okay, hold on. We're talking about a school secretary allegedly forging documents. What exactly happened?
So, Ms. Gonzalez, she had been at Hyder for a while, worked her way up from office assistant, and then in September of 2020, she just vanished.
Vanished. Like,
Yeah.
just didn't show up one day.
On no 2 weeks' notice, cleared out of her district housing. Poof.
Okay, and then?
Months later, the district finds this check, right, for $2,486. It had been deposited into her business account, and we'll get to the business part later. That's a whole other thing. But the check was from the Student Activity Fund.
Wait, so the money meant for, like, kids' field trips and clubs and stuff,
That's the one.
she disappears, and then this check appears months later. I have to ask, how did no one notice something was off before that?
You would think someone would notice, right? But it gets worse. See, the auditor claims that Mrs. Gonzalez didn't just, take this check. She forged the signature of the district's payroll specialist to cash it.
Hold on. So she allegedly forged this signature, stole a check, and no one noticed for months. Were there any safeguards in place at all? This wasn't just a small oversight. This feels like a much larger issue with how the school district was managing its finances.
Oh, 100%. Think about it like this. Imagine if your bank account had zero security measures in place.
That's a terrifying thought.
Right. And that's essentially what was happening at Hyder Elementary. The auditor's report actually points to two major areas where their financial controls were basically non-existent.
Okay, well, let's get into it. What kind of oversights are we talking about here?
So the first one, and it's almost comical if it wasn't so serious, is the whole unauthorized credit card situation. We're not talking about a few small things here. We're talking 40.
Wait, 40?
40 separate unauthorized purchases on the school's Sam's Club card.
40. What on earth were they buying at Sam's Club 40 different times?
I mean, some groceries, sure, but we're also talking alcohol, toys, video games, and they even got adult clothing.
You're kidding. Someone was charging adult clothing to the school's Sam's Club card. This wasn't just mismanagement. This feels like straight-up misuse of funds. Over $7,000, and no one noticed.
And that's the thing, right? There was zero oversight. Nobody was checking the credit card statements. No one questioned these purchases. It's like nobody noticed a thing until the auditor stepped in.
It's honestly mind-boggling that this could happen, especially in a small district where, you'd think people would be paying closer attention. What was the second major issue?
Okay, so buckle up, because this one's a real head-scratcher. The report uncovered this whole system where employees were basically using a school account for their own personal cash exchanges.
Wait, what?
So they had this checking account, right, used for deposits from the U.S. Postal Service because Hyder Elementary, get this, has a post office on the school grounds.
Okay.
But instead of, doing things the normal way, going to a bank, employees were writing checks to themselves from this USPS account for their own personal use.
So they were treating a school account like their personal piggy bank. That's bold.
Bold is one word for it. And get this, over $2,600 went, poof, into thin air with this scheme. The former office specialist even admitted to signing checks without looking at any documentation. She was signing blank checks.
Wow. It's no wonder the state had to step in. But I have to imagine this goes way beyond just Mrs. Gonzalez, right? I mean,
Yeah.
What are the larger implications here for Hyder Elementary?
Oh, absolutely. While Ms. Gonzalez's actions were definitely a big part of the problem, the systemic issues at Hyder can't be ignored. And the consequences, well, they go way beyond just them missing money.
Okay, then let's get into those consequences. What kind of impact are we talking about here?
To really get it, you have to understand Hyder Elementary. This isn't some wealthy district with tons of resources. It's small, rural Arizona, and almost a third of the students live below the poverty line. We're talking about a place where every dollar really, really counts.
So that $12,224 in total losses, which, just to be clear, includes both Mrs. Gonzalez's actions and those systemic failures.
Yeah.
That's a huge chunk of change for a school like that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's just the immediate financial loss, the long-term consequences both for the school and the community. Well, those could be even more far-reaching.
This is about way more than just, like, missing funds, though, right?
Yeah.
This feels like a real blow to the entire community.
100%. I mean, the financial loss, that's bad, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg here.
Right.
Think about the kids, right?
Exactly.
That $12,224 could have been field trips, new textbooks, classroom supplies.
Support programs, I mean.
Exactly, especially in a district where so many students are already struggling.
Right. This is impacting their education, their opportunity.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole issue of the school's reputation.
Oh, right, yeah.
This kind of scandal, it just erodes trust, you know.
In the whole system, yeah.
Parents might not want to send their kids there anymore, donors. They're going to think twice about giving money. And
Yeah.
forget about attracting good teachers. It's going to be a nightmare.
Right, like who wants to work for a place that's dealing with all this?
Exactly. It's this ripple effect that impacts everyone and everything associated with Hyder.
And we haven't even talked about the fallout from this state yet. This can't be good for their standing with the folks who hold the purse strings.
Oh, you know they're not happy.
Right.
We're talking stricter regulations, way more scrutiny of their finances. They could even withhold funds until they get their act together.
Wow. So this is like a whole mess with consequences that go way beyond what happened initially. What's interesting to me, though, is this isn't an isolated incident. We've seen this kind of thing before. Financial mismanagement in school districts happens more than you'd think. So what can be done to prevent this?
Honestly, transparency and accountability. And a whole lot of responsibility sprinkled in there, too.
Okay, I like it. Break it down for me.
It all starts with having clear financial policies and procedures, right? So like in a school, a good internal control would be something like requiring 2 different staff members to sign off on any purchase over, say, $500.
That was smart. So no one person can just go rogue.
Exactly. No more signing blank checks or using the school credit card for personal shopping spree.
Sounds like a good rule.
Those policies need to cover everything. Credit card use, reimbursements, how checks are issued, who can authorize them.
Got it.
And this is important. Those policies need to be reviewed and updated all the time. Things change, technology changes, and you got to keep up.
Makes sense. But even the best policies don't mean much if people aren't following them, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make sure everyone's on the same page?
Training. And I don't just mean a one-time don't steal kind of thing. Everyone from the superintendent on down to the administrative staff needs regular training on financial ethics, internal controls, the whole 9 yards.
It's like a refresher course in how to be a responsible adult with Money 101.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
got to keep those principles front of mind. But it goes beyond just training, too. You also need open communication.
What do you mean?
It has to be an environment where employees feel comfortable speaking up if they see something fishy. If they're afraid of retaliation, they're not going to say anything.
Right. See something, say something, as they say.
Exactly. That early detection is key. But we can't forget about external oversight either.
Because clearly, relying on folks to self-police isn't always enough.
Sadly, no. The auditor's report. That played a huge role in all this coming to light. So regular audits, both internal and external, are essential.
Okay, so we've got clear policies, regular training, open communication, and audits. What else?
Well, this is the 21st century, right? We got to talk about technology.
Oh, right, of course. What's the tech angle here?
School districts need to embrace technology to really amp up those financial controls. I'm talking expense management software, online payment platforms that leave a clear paper trail.
And probably harder to fudge, right?
You got it. And we can even use data analytics to spot any weird spending patterns. We've got the tools, we just got to use them.
It's like being proactive instead of reactive. Let's prevent the problems before they even start.
Now you're getting it. It's all about creating this system of checks and balances that makes it, like, ridiculously difficult for this stuff to happen.
I love it. So all that being said, Who's ultimately responsible for making these changes? Is it the school board, the superintendent? Who do we hold accountable?
It's everyone's responsibility, but like most things, it starts at the top. Those school board members, they're elected officials, and they have a duty to make sure your tax dollars are being used properly.
So they set the tone for the entire district.
100%. They approve budgets, hold the superintendent accountable. They're the big dogs.
And then the superintendent is responsible for actually putting those policies into practice.
Exactly. They got to cultivate this culture of like, we're transparent here, we're accountable here.
We do things the right way.
Yes. They also need to make sure all the staff are trained properly and be on the lookout for any potential issues. It's about leadership.
Lead by example.
Yeah.
But what about the state? Do they just show up, do an audit, and then peace out?
Oh, no, they have a much bigger role than that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because it can't just be on the school district to self-regulate.
Exactly. The state departments of education, they can help these school districts create and implement solid financial practices.
So like mentorship programs.
Yeah. They can also offer training programs for school staff, do their own reviews of the district's finances, and even step in if things get really bad. They're like the safety net.
Okay, so it's a team effort then. Everyone from the school board to the state has a role to play in protecting these funds.
100%. And it's not just about catching the bad guys after the fact. It's about making it so difficult for those bad guys to even exist in the first place.
I like it. A good offense is the best defense.
Yeah.
So build a system that prevents the problems, train your people, stay vigilant, and if you see something, say something.
You got it. It's all about creating a culture of financial integrity. Everything else flows from that.
It's kind of wild, right?
Let's see.
To think that these systems, the ones that are supposed to be looking out for our kids' futures, can be so easily manipulated. It really makes you wonder, beyond all the policies and audits and tech upgrades, what's the secret sauce? Like, what's the one thing that can truly prevent these situations from happening?
You know, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something that a lot of folks overlook. I really think it boils down to one word: integrity.
Integrity, huh? That's it.
Yeah, think about it. You can have all the rules and regs in the world, but if people aren't operating with integrity, well, those rules are just words on a page.
Just for sure.
Exactly. It has to be more than just checking boxes, right? It's
Yeah.
got to be about creating a culture where everyone, and I mean everyone, understands that ethical behavior is non-negotiable.
Where calling out bad behavior is encouraged, not punished.
Exactly. And where people are held accountable for their actions, no matter their position. It's about creating a system where doing the right thing is so ingrained that it's not even a question.
It becomes automatic, like second nature.
Exactly. It's not enough to just tell people don't steal.
Yeah.
You have to build a foundation where that thought never even crosses their minds.
It's about building a community where everyone feels invested and responsible.
100%. It's about fostering a sense of shared responsibility for the well-being of the school, the students, the entire community.
This has been, honestly, eye-opening. It's easy to think, oh, this kind of stuff only happens in those big, faceless corporations. But the truth is, it can happen anywhere.
Anywhere there's money involved, really.
Yeah.
And the impact on a community like Hyder, a small rural community that relies on every single dollar, it can be devastating.
Absolutely. It just highlights how important it is for everyone to be paying attention. Ask questions. Demand transparency. Don't just assume things are being handled properly.
I always say trust, but verify. And if something doesn't seem right, speak up.
The future of our schools depends on it. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Hyder Elementary School District financial misconduct case, here's something I want folks to think about. It's a question, really. What steps can you take in your own community to make sure that your local schools are prioritizing financial integrity? What can you do to be part of this solution?
It's a question worth pondering, and more importantly, it's a conversation worth having.
Couldn't agree more. Until next time, folks, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.